ask everyone to take their seats, please?
Itchy.
That's it.
Itchy.
Well, good morning, everyone. That's kind of weak. Is everybody awake this morning? Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Russell Gross, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for visiting us and joining us here at the Black Cultural Center this morning. This year, 2023, marks 40 years of operations for this organization as a community institution that is... 40 years. The organization for the last 40 years has really propelled in telling the story of African Nova Scotians and the story of blacks that have come to the shores of Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia has a remarkable black history. As you can see on the walls here, as you've looked around, and we're going to do a little bit of a formal tour a little bit later, you'll see that these names along the back wall on either side of me here, and those are the names of the 52 historic black communities that once existed in this community. I'd like to begin this program by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the unceded traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We are privileged and thankful to be holding this event today on the land that is covered by historic treaties of peace and friendship. I would also like to acknowledge the existence of people of African descent in Nova Scotia for over 400 years. May we honor and offer gratitude to our ancestors who came before us, to this land, and the commitment to not let their history be lost. As mentioned earlier, I'd like to officially welcome you to the University Studying Slavery Conference 2023 here in Nova Scotia, which is the birthplace of black culture and heritage in Canada. With communities that trace back over 4 centuries and are multi-generational. It's my honor and pleasure to share that this is the first USS Conference on the shores of Canada. Slavery existed, thrived here in Nova Scotia and in Canada, and this conference will provide a lens into a greater understanding of that historic past. Today we are pleased to announce a new partnership with the University of King's College and the Black Cultural Center for Nova Scotia. This important connection will ensure that the University of King's College ongoing work on equity, diversity, accessibility, and inclusion will now benefit from a more robust and regular engagement with the African Nova Scotia community. An advisory committee will be formed to make recommendations to the university on measures it can take to ensure that it provides a welcoming and supporting educational home to African Nova Scotians and Black Canadian students, for the faculty and staff. The committee's work will generate research anticipated to broaden our scope here at the Black Cultural Center, to allow us to gain invaluable information on the business of slavery and how it's impacted our communities here in Canada, our social culture, and start a historical nationwide conversation about the trauma that's associated with slavery. and how that has affected the community from generation to generation. This new partnership is an extension of the work that King's University and Dalhousie University have been doing with the Black Cultural Center to organize the very conference that you're at this week. King's has taken steps to identify and reduce the barriers causing African Nova Scotians and Black students to be underrepresented within the university. I stand before you today excited with this importance of this monumental partnership, that it will mean, what it will mean for the Black community, what it will mean for the Black Cultural Center, and most importantly, what it will mean for us collectively as Nova Scotians and Canadians. And it's especially powerful in the fact that this, as I mentioned earlier, is the Black Cultural Center's 40th anniversary. The business and the effects of slavery and the harm it caused to a people is something that needs to be explored, researched, and most importantly, shared so that people can be educated. King's work to elevate this part of its historic past speaks to its willingness to be an ally to the Black community, and that's so vitally important. Together we are truly stronger, and this partnership is an example of what is possible when we look past the past hurt and move towards a future with a greater understanding while looking back at the past. So at this time, I'd like to call upon my good friend and colleague, Mr. Bill Leahy, who is the president of, he's pointing to me and telling me I'm in the wrong order here. So, the wrong order. So I'd like to another great friend and supporter of the Black Cultural Center, Mr. Douglas Ruck.
So you now know both of Russell's friends. Good morning, everyone. My name is Douglas Ruck. I am the chair of the Board of Governors of the University of King's College. And I am delighted, excited, and proud to be here. In my official capacity as the chair of the Board of Governors, but equally so as an African Nova Scotian, standing here in the Black Cultural Center and with my colleagues and those who are part of this extraordinary conference that's being held. I'm not going to take very long, as I will be relatively brief, but I want to say that the University of King's College, since its early days, has always been known as an exceptional institution of higher education. Exceptional, yes. Accepting, not so much. King's, through its history, was disinclined in many respects to bring in those from other communities. King's, during its history, in fact, portrayed and represented society as it was seen by those who were in control. King's was a predominantly white university. I am a graduate of the University of King's College. I had the opportunity to go there to study. I had the opportunity to serve as the president of the King's Student Union. But having said that, the absence of diversity was so very evident. It was real. Those of us who were African Nova Scotian students were few and far between. Now, having said that, the one thing that made King stand out, even in those days, it had a scholarship, known then as the Prince Scholarship, now the Dr. Gordon Earl Scholarship. But the Prince Scholarship in the early 60s was designed and dedicated to African Nova Scotian students. It was the only university that was doing that kind of encouragement. That was one of the main reasons, in fact, I attended King's as a consequence of it holding that scholarship. Even though I was not the recipient, I was interested in going to a university that had this kind of encouragement. But what I found was a place that was welcoming on the one hand, but not encouraging to African Nova Scotians, not encouraging people from different communities. Today, what we are witnessing is a significant change. Today, we are witnessing is history in the making. As the University of King's College, under the leadership of our president, Bill Leahy, another one of Russell's friends, is now coming together with the Black Cultural Center to strengthen that tie and to hear directly from the community as to how it represents itself, as to how it moves forward in making sure that there's a greater sense of inclusiveness and welcome by this university. It's not enough, with all due respect, to issue an acknowledgement. It's not enough to say, well, wouldn't it be nice to have a larger and more diverse population in our university. It's not enough if you do not follow up on those words by doing something. Today, King's is doing something. Today, King's is starting to make a difference. And I say to you, start it. There remains a great deal to do. But I feel confident in the commitment of the university, the confidence that I feel in those who are a part of this university to follow through and to make a true difference, so that in the future, someone will not stand here and say that the University of King's College, in fact, is absent a true commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, but that rather King's has led the way and leads the way in promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. Today, that now begins. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ruck, for those wonderful words, and it speaks to the core of the Board of Governors of University of King's College and their forward thinking to acknowledge the past and move forward with a new connection to make things better. And we're so proud here at the Black Cultural Center to be a part of that change. At this time, I will call upon, in the right order, I might add, my good friend Bill Leahy to bring remarks.
Thank you very much, Russell. Thank you, Doug. I just thought I'd start by acknowledging His Excellency John Mahama, who's here in the audience with us. It's a real honor to have you here, sir, and the High Commissioner as well from Ghana with us. And I also just wanted to acknowledge Ashley Schmidt and Kurt Von Dack. I don't know where they are sitting. In the back, they are the organizers for universities studying slavery. And as I said to a smaller group earlier, it was, I'll always remember the telephone conversation we had at the beginning of the pandemic about bringing this conference to Halifax and the mutual excitement that we had about that prospect. So I want to begin by acknowledging someone else. I want to recognize and celebrate Doug Ruck. Doug has been working to change King's since he became a student there in 1968. And he has been the formative influence on everything we have been doing at King's to become the inclusive university we aspire to be. Today is a huge step forward for King's, but it is in a fundamental sense Doug's achievement and triumph. Doug, thank you for giving King's one more chance when you agreed in 2018 to come back to the Board of Governors, this time in the leadership role of board chair. And I know Doug has already received a lovely round of applause. Dr. Shirley Tillotson is an emeritus professor of both King's and Dalhousie who contributed research to the King's Scholarly Inquiry on King's and Slavery. And her work focused on how King's benefited financially from the wealth created by enslaved black people. She summarized her findings with these galvanizing words. We inherit an institution funded at its origins by unjustly extracted profits and taxes charged on blood-soaked goods. We should understand the benefit to the college and the province that was taken from the enslaved people of the 18th and 19th centuries. In collaboration with our Dalhousie colleagues who are here with us this morning and our colleagues at the Black Cultural Center for Nova Scotia, we acted on those words and on the findings of both Dr. Tillotson and co-authors Dr. Carolyn Smarts-Frost and David States, whose paper examined how the people of King's were connected to slavery by applying to host a conference of the university's Studying Slavery Consortium in Halifax. now that we are on the eve of that conference, 2 years later than was originally planned. I want to say that we are looking forward to the sharing of the findings of our scholarly inquiry, as well as those led by Dr. Afua Cooper for Dalhousie, their Lord Dalhousie panel, with an international audience. And we are looking forward to learning from the conference's central theme of reparations and education. In the meantime, through our work organizing the conference, I am so happy to say that we have become friends with Russell Gross and the Black Cultural Center for Nova Scotia. For some time now, we at King's have been taking steps to become a more welcoming and supportive environment for Black students, faculty, and staff. These steps began before the release of the findings of our scholarly inquiry in 2020. They include the creation of scholarships, the hiring of Black colleagues, the appointment of a full-time equity officer, actions to decolonize our spaces, and making changes in our curriculum to address the legacies of exclusion represented in the findings of our scholarly inquiry. We recently began working with Dartmouth's Prep Academy, a wonderful organization supporting Black student success in education. We have also been building a stronger relationship with the Black Student Advising Center for Dalhousie and King's students that is located at Dalhousie. Yesterday, we announced a new professorship in the history of Black enslavement in Canada, in partnership with Dalhousie's Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. That professorship will make King's a contributor to the new major in Black and African Diaspora Studies that Dalhousie has created for both Dalhousie and King's students. But at King's, something important has been missing, which has not been the case at Dalhousie. That is a strong relationship with the African Nova Scotian community that can inform this ongoing work at all institutional levels, and that will help us to ensure that through our work, we are making a meaningful contribution back to the African Nova Scotia communities whose contributions to Nova Scotia started almost 200 years before 1789, the year that the 235-year history of King started. I am so happy that today we are addressing that gap by formally establishing a relationship with the Black Cultural Center that will ensure, from this day forward, we continue to make progress by acting in accordance with the core principle of nothing about us without us. The work of King's scholarly inquiry on Kings and slavery, like the work of the Lord Dalhousie panel, is not only about these universities' historic connections to slavery. It is also about recognizing the ongoing legacy of that history. Slavery is foundational to the systemic racism and oppression of Canadians of African descent. To address that legacy, we need a continuing and sustained conversation with people of African descent about how we make King's a university for them and a university that makes a valuable contribution to their communities. Before concluding, I want to acknowledge Jasmine Parent, who's sitting here in the front row with the amazing hot pink jacket, who 3 weeks ago became the equity officer at King's, the new equity officer. 2. Jasmine, the confidence you have placed in us by becoming our equity officer is inspiring to me and to everyone at King's. And I know how important your leadership and guidance will be.
definitely a proud milestone for the Black Cultural Center as we progress along on our 40th anniversary. At this time, I understand that His Excellency would like to say a few words, and I welcome you to our podium here at the Black Cultural Center. It's such an honor to have someone of your stature to adorn our walls and to walk into this building. You know, when the ancestors produced this place, they wanted to create a place that was a safe space for us to be able to share our history, a place that would enable us to protect, preserve, and promote our history. And it's so vital that you are able to be here with us today. I welcome you forward.
Thank you very much. I've learned in my career that it's an occupational hazard to be a president. You are always called to say a few words when you're not even prepared for it. I'm supposed to give the keynote address tomorrow at the conference on university studying slavery. And I have my speech prepared. I don't want to give out any of it prematurely. But to say that I'm very happy to be here and to compliment all of you for the great achievement you've made in establishing the history of Africans in the diaspora. I think there's an intrinsic link between the two. Ghana happens to be the country that has the most forts and castles in Africa. And from many of those forts and castles, which began a trade in gold and other, legitimate goods, slavery overtook all these and became more profitable than even the trade in gold. And so all these forts and castles were converted into slave forts. And a lot of the slaves that were captured from the landlocked areas, from Burkina Faso, from Mali and others, came to a place called Salaga, which was where the auction took place. And then after they had been sorted out, they were marched to the coast into the slave forts. And for those who have gone back to Africa and gone to, especially the Cape Coast Castle, we have two big castles, Elmina and Cape Coast, which were quite notorious for the slave trade. We have the famous Door of No Return, where most of our ancestors, went through before they were loaded onto the ships and shipped out to the colonies in the Caribbean, America, and other places. And so there's always been that intrinsic link between the two. And it's always important to trace the journey from the origin to the destination. And I think that this, for me, locks in part of what happened on the other side. I was just looking at the migrations and remigrations back to Africa and Sierra Leone. And as a student of history, I did history for my first degree. I think that this has been a very enlightening experience. And so I want to thank you all very much. Thank King's College, thank the Black Caucus Center, and I hope that this cooperation is going to enhance the understanding of what happened in our history. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for those kind words. We're honored here today that we're kicking off the Nova Scotia or Halifax University Studying Slavery Conference. And as Bill had mentioned, it's been over 2 years in the making. And I will say that the organizers of the University of King's College and Dalhousie University worked hand in hand with the Black Cultural Center to ensure that there was a strong community connection and that there was an appetite for the community to be aware of the conference, to participate in the conference. And that, really spoke a lot to the community. And I'd like to take this opportunity to ask all of the committee members that are here today just to stand for a moment. The majority of the meetings that we had were done virtually because it was at a time of, we went through the pandemic as we were meeting. And so today, here in the center, there's some of us, it's the first time we've actually met in person. So it shows the power of technology and what can be done when you put your mind and heart to towards it. So that's the conclusion of the formal part of this program, but I want to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about the Black Cultural Center, and then we can do a little bit of a walking tour through the museum, and then there's some refreshments here as well. So the Black Cultural Center, as mentioned, was opened its doors in 1983 as an act of provincial legislation, as a provincially mandated museum, and it happened to be at that time the largest and first museum of its type in Canada. Sadly, today, we still are the largest museum of this type in Canada. So we hope to excel and continue to be that voice for a community, not only here in Nova Scotia, but across Canada. When the center started, the idea of preserving and protecting Black history was something that was very obscure, something that wasn't really done. You know, we here at the center helped change that narrative. We came from a place in our communities here where the communities were afraid of their history, were almost ashamed of their history. And you know, a lot of that has to do with the ills of slavery and that piece of our history that we were synonymous with. But through the work of the community and the scholars that have invested in this place and the researchers, we've changed that scope. We've changed that narrative. We've changed the narrative to say that through that struggle, through those hard times, and through that adversity, we've made successful communities. 400 years is nothing to be afraid of when you look at the number of years that we've been here, and you look at the number of communities that are here. The African Nova Scotia community was started with 4 major migrations, which you'll learn about on the banners and displays that we have here. The first major migration of Blacks into Nova Scotia were the Black Loyalists. The second major migration were the Jamaican Maroons. The third were the migrants of the War of 1812. And then the final major migration were Caribbean migrants that came in the early 1900s as skilled labor for our remarkable steel and coal industries that we have here in this province. So it's a storied history that's spanned the generations, and we're so pleased here at the Black Cultural Center to celebrate that history. The building here is divided into many great areas, and I'll just share a few of them with you. On your right, my left, there's a room that's called the Many Rivers Cross Room, and that room focuses on community life of those 52 historic communities, so a little bit of history about those communities. And one of the things that's striking in that room is the exhibition on slavery, and the fact that for most people that visit our shores here in Nova Scotia and visit the Black Cultural Center, whether they're tourists or visitors, they make the assumption that slavery didn't exist here in Nova Scotia, or that it didn't exist in Canada. And that is one of the battles that we face in being able to share and educate people that it did in fact happen here in Nova Scotia. On the opposite side, we have the Lift Every Voice room, and those with the blue doors, and that room features the aspect and the importance of spirituality in the African Nova Scotian community. Each one of those 52 historic Black communities typically had a church, and the church was their form of leadership, their form of togetherness, and even in some cases, their form of education. And all of those churches work together in a network in an organization called the African United Baptist Association. And that's an organization that was founded in 1853, and today that organization still exists and it still thrives as a Baptist organization that brings churches together. What's remarkable about the African United Baptist Association is that it was founded by an escaped slave, and that's none other than Reverend Richard Preston, who you'll see on one of the banners that are on display here. And what's remarkable about his story is that, when the migrants came here to Nova Scotia, when those that came from across the various migrations came to Nova Scotia, everything was stripped away from them, from their way of living to their religion. And to have a religion of their own and to gather and worship on their own was something that gave the communities a sense of pride. And it created a strong base of the importance of education, the importance of religion and the role that it's played. And so you'll see a little bit of that on display in that room. Directly behind you, there's a stairwell to take you upstairs, and upstairs we have a remarkable exhibit on number 2 Construction Battalion. And that was one of Canada's largest all-black contingents that served in the First World War. What's remarkable about their story is that they had to fight for the right to fight. They went to recruiting offices when the call came out that there was conflict and there was a war, and they were turned away simply because of the color of their skin. And years later, 2 years later in fact, the government made a decision to allow them in to serve, but only as an all-black labor battalion. And this remarkable story, and we talk about connections, wouldn't have been brought forth if it wasn't for the late Senator Calvin Ruck, who happens to be Doug Ruck's dad, that penned this book, this marvelous book called Canada's Best Kept Military Secret. And fast forward 40 years later, we are at a point where there was a national apology by the Government of Canada acknowledging that past hurt. And so you'll see that exhibit upstairs and get a sense of what that meant. You know, that story of the number 2 Construction Battalion actually sums up the story of the black experience in Nova Scotia. That experience of not belonging, that experience of wanting to do more and being told that you couldn't. And to come full circle and seeing the national apology creates an atmosphere where the black community in Nova Scotia feels that it's being seen now. And then we look at things that are happening today, like the marvelous things that Kings had mentioned that they've been doing to elevate black culture and history and the black presence. It all shows that the tide is slowly turning. And to quote the late Senator Calvin Ruck, his famous saying was, "The winds of change are blowing," and they are blowing here in Nova Scotia. And so I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you to the Black Cultural Center. Please feel free to take a look around. Myself and the staff will be here to answer any of your questions, and take some time to look at the displays and the exhibits. I'd also like to take this opportunity, because I see him standing over there, to acknowledge our board chair and president, Mr. Mervyn Broom. And he'll give you a little wave there. And we'll definitely get a chance to talk to you a little bit later. But, you know, it's...
nice to me now that we sit out the duties as a sign,
A lot of the work that we do here at the Black Cultural Center wouldn't be possible without our board of directors. And so what's unique about the center is that we have a board of directors of 13 members that are made up of the black communities that span the province. So it's a fully provincial board, and you know, they're all volunteer. We're really fortunate for that. And the center is an organization that is open all year round, and we tell the stories of our communities. And what is so unique about black history and black culture is that it's ever evolving. You know, there's always something new. There's always something new that we're learning. And it's our hope that this new partnership will help us even further entrench into developing that history and that culture. So at this time, I'd like to welcome you to take part in some of the reception, and feel free to look around the museum, and I'll be available for questions. And as mentioned, there's exhibits on this floor and the second floor. So again, thank you, and all the very best at the conference this week. There's been a lot of work that's went into it, and I think that it's going to be a good expression of the connection between, as His Excellency said, the connection between the African diaspora and this part of the country and this part of Canada, and how that connection is so relevant here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ruck? No.
Hey, you're going to be next. You're going to be next.
Look right here.
From here,
We're
where
going to take the bus to Africville. It's a small museum. They're very small, and then we go back to the hotel. But if at any point in time y'all want to go back, I could call the car and let them know, right? But Africville is just a small museum. We wouldn't be long there. I'm not sure if there's going to be some food somewhere along the way, box lunch or something.
So we are living here now.
When people finish walk around. Yeah, yeah.
You with two? I'll take two.
I knew you would.
Karen. Hi, Karen White Boswell. We met through Bernard.
Yes.
So I'm going to keep our team kind of out of your way for now.
No,
'cause I know,
allow me to join you.
yeah, because I just want to make sure everybody's together before we do the tour.
Okay.
And so I have a few more people joining, if that's
Okay.
all right.
Yeah,
Because
whatever you'd
everybody,
like to do.
we had said we'd start at 11.
Okay, sure.
So I know you're doing your thing this morning, and I want to just keep them together, if that's all right.
It's fine with me.
Awesome.
Okay.
So glad we got to meet you.
Yeah, you as well.
All right.
Russell, that was fantastic. It was really beautiful. I just wanted to ask you quickly. Shannon from Event Partners was asking me about Obama tickets.
Yep. Tell them to go in front desk and
Here?
USS Conference tickets.
Here. Okay, I'm going to take them.
Okay.
And do you have extra banners? Like BCC banners? Could I take them? Okay. Because I'm gonna get Bill to take them on the bus back to the Marriott. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Did you talk to him about the tickets and the banners?